This is Brand2Brand Happy Hour, where marketing meets good company, great ideas, and even better drinks. All right, let's kick things off.
What's up, everybody? Today, I'm here with my friend Cliff. We're talking about how you can take some of the best learnings from B2C and apply it to B2B. I know some people listening are going to say, oh, I know it's a no-fly zone for some. Sometimes people think it's just about having fun and it doesn't make sense in the B2B landscape. But you got a killer background, man. You've had an opportunity to be both on brand side as well as sweating hard at the agency. Would love for you to just kind of tee up a little bit of your background for the show.
Thanks all for having me. I appreciate it. Love the show. This is awesome. Such a fun environment to be in. Most of my career has been on the external agency side. So I started as a young assistant account executive in New York at JWT and scaled that from living in New York down in Miami at Crispin, out to McCann in San Francisco, back to Boston to work at Hill Holiday, back out to McGarry Bowen in San Francisco. And then I made the move in-house at Liberty Mutual back in 2017, where I was building out the in-house agency there in the marketing department, and then made a move over to Rapid7, which is a cybersecurity company, to handle their planning and operations globally. And then most recently, I'm at Sedgwick, which is the largest claims and risk management partner in the world. So we handle the majority of like kind of back-end operations for any type of insurance-related activity. And so I'm building out the in-house agency there as part of the marketing leadership team.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about you and your background, you've had such an opportunity to be a part of a whole bunch of different teams and a whole bunch of different structures in terms of how those teams operate and run. And I think understanding where you've seen success from, let's say, a B2B environment versus B2C and how to bring those teams together and to do so in a way that doesn't alienate your audience. I guess first question would be, what's the biggest misconception about B2B marketing today?
One, that it's just classic and transactional, right? I think there's a side of B2B marketing that comes as this is boring, creative. It's, you know, it's if you've ever been on the agency side, there used to be a fear that you'd work in pharma, right? And pharma was like, okay, you're going to be a pharma guy for most of your life. And you're like, all right. And now I can say this because I'm becoming, not completely, but a little bit of an insurance guy and financial services. But I would say, you know, that kind of classic, like the creative isn't as fun. There's less engagement. It's very transactional. Like I deliver this thing at this time. I give it to here. It creates a lead. The lead goes to the sales team. And there's sort of a classic process related to that. And I think that's a big misconception. I think because that's a mindset, and I think there's a huge opportunity to advance that. I think the second thing is, a lot of folks, when they look at B2B, think of it as like people won't know about that on like person on the street, right? And that's not inherently valuable because that feels distracted. Like, why would I need you to know about the businesses we're going after? Like even my own company right now, Sedgwick. Like, why would you need to know about Sedgwick? But the reality is a lot of people who engage or find some level of interest in what you're doing have value, right? So I think that part of it of the people thinking like, okay, like that's just B2B on that side and I'll kind of put that in a box is like, oh, well, look at a lot of the big B2B brands that are starting to actually become a little bit more consumer friendly in their approach, whether it's Salesforce and they're doing stuff with like Matthew McConaughey and talking about data, you know, like, or they're Adobe and the conferences that Adobe does, which basically everyone wants to go to those big ones now, or, you know, just other big companies that are starting to figure out how do they stand out for their audiences, but also have a new val prop that they're pulling out or a new strategic angle or a new way to kind of talk to their audiences.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, that B2B buyer is still sitting at home on the couch and you can still hit them and market to them in a very similar way. And I think especially from a media perspective as well, there's some really interesting, innovative changes to how marketing is happening. How do you apply customer first thinking to enterprise brands? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so when I look at the buyer, right? So this is the big aha moment for me was the buyer's not a single buyer on the B2B side, right? It's usually a multitude of people that are influencing that. So take insurance. Could be a risk manager. There could be procurement. Could be their sales team. Could be their tech team. As opposed to on the B2C side, usually that has, not all the time, but a little more one-to-one. Like, what do you want to buy? Like, I'm going to buy this Awala. Like, they're going to most likely target me and people like me. And so I think like that mindset of looking at the audience on that side has a ton of opportunity for you to go, okay, let's deconstruct this of like, what do they need, want, desire? And a lot of that questions about that buyer, for me at least, came from a B2C mindset. Like, I want to know everything about this. I want to know, what do they do to make decisions in their day-to-day? What types of information and how do they consume that type of information? So what's the content channel? What's the medium? Also, like, feels and desires, which sounds always like the squishy brand level questions that are out there. Yeah, if they're freaking out and they're in a challenging place because their business is in a tough place, how are they going to make that decision differently than when they're in a very comfortable growth mode? And so I think that application of really going deep on your audience is a huge opportunity that can be plussed up on the B2B side. And that's something that we did at Rapid7 was we started looking at, not just segmentation, but let's look at our archetype of our brand and how does that work with the B2B buyer? Like, what do we want to show up for them inherently based on their insights, challenges across the range of work?
You've had an opportunity to really specialize in building brands from the inside and teams from the inside. And so I'd be curious, what's your perspective on in-house creative teams and how it sort of changes the game?
Yeah. So I learned this back in 2017. I was at McGarry Bowen out in San Francisco. Two of my clients were building in-house teams. And this was when in-house teams have always been around for like 20, 30 years. A lot of them have been packaging design or creative shops or content shops, depending on what they've been, and they've had different values. But when I was there, I was watching Intel build like a 90-person shop in like 2 years. And they were building their in-house teams through really good global storytelling. So taking social and digital teams and capturing content from anywhere at the NBA Finals to go shooting the Great Wall of China to telling these really cool stories to tell another angle to their overall brand and performance story for Intel, which I was like, all right, this is awesome. Clorox was building theirs, which is now a pretty awesome agency called Electro, by doing it really operationally efficient, meaning like they had 10 CPG-based brands, and they, when they did that, they weren't going to basically create net new websites for every single one. They're going to use the same tech platform for each of them. So they were using WordPress, or they were creating their content engine this work. And so these in-house teams were like, okay, I see this really cool creative side. I see this operationally efficient team. Can I pull all that together and shape that? And so I've always kind of taken that mindset with me to whatever organization I've had, is like, how do I build a really good, efficient model so it works for the business and is in a really good place? And how do I take that and also help and work with the leadership team to get the creative value out of that? And that way it has both staying power on that and has a vision and builds that. I think the biggest thing that I learned, and I've had this conversation with a lot of other leaders, is like, what does the next 5 years look like? Which is a very cliche-based question. But if you actually put that on paper and go, what is this year about? And how does that ladder up to this larger part? This is where you can start to build a multi-year roadmap. And now you could probably do that 5 years and 3 years, given the speed of how things are changing. But that's what we did at Liberty, right? Like, we got the team together, and that was the charter, right? That was the ask from teams. And it was about, okay, what's this 5-year plan? What are you going to do with this agency? Like, what's the growth goals? How does this create unique value? And I think when teams or agencies don't have that charter, you end up being a cost center, right? You end up being part of this thing that's like adding value, but there's not a larger inherent value outside of, you're a team here that's creating a lot of the content, keep going, great, like take this in. And it can sometimes have a very deli counter vibe. And that's where I think a lot of in-house agencies either rise out of that scenario to become a strategic partner, or they kind of keep going through that grind and grind through it.
I completely agree with you. And I think often, unfortunately, the concept of in-housing comes from a cost controls perspective. So for it to become a cost center has a lot to do, I think, with leadership and leadership's buy-in and philosophy about what bringing it in-house actually is going to do. Tell me what's going on inside Sedgwick. Like, what does that team look like? What are you excited about building right now? You got a lot of things that are going on.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So I started in 2024, right at the end of the, like right in the summer, end of the summer. And we built out that multi-year roadmap. We're like, look, like, let's go be B2B in-house agency of the year in the next 3-4 years. And so by 2028, that's our goal. Super audacious goal. Is it possible? Not sure. But what that does is, it sounds like a selfish thing, like let's go B2B in-house agency and win all these awards, which it has absolutely that value, but that has a value back to the business. It means let's take this team in year one and really organize this team so they've got clear understanding of what's their role, what's their value to the organization, what's their job title, and has that changed? How do we start to make work and make it stronger and better? So we've just gone through, with our team of 20 people this year, and we've got about an average about 3 to 4 contractors at any given time, depending on our teams and the bandwidth of the work. How are they, doing new visual identity, right? How are they rebranding the company? How are they creating all the campaigns across all of our performance-based work? Are they handling internal communications and all the programs that we do for our colleagues? So we've got this team of 20 plus people that's probably done about 3,200 projects in 2025 across every type of touch point out there. Yeah, it's a high volume work. And that's also that B2B side, right? Like, let's go. But it is starting to shape it from intake and request and delivery to, okay, let's really get into stronger briefs, stronger campaigns. What does performance look like? Let's look at the data and the analytics. Let's look at the opportunities that are out there. So I like a lot where we're at after this first kind of full year of being on the team, because I think we're delivering against that 3-4 year plan to go to BB. And right now it's like, we've got really good work. We've got this first level of the mark of the brand, and we're like, living and breathing it, down to the swag I've got on today, which I wear every single day, to the next phase of it, which will be like, okay, how are we changing the experiences across these things so that not only the business can feel that, the marketing team feel it, but then our individuals can feel that. So I think that's how I'm always trying to think about it, is a clear and transparent value exchange. Because if you're not like that, you usually get the opposite, or skepticism, right? That's just creative for creative's sake, or cool stuff over here. And it's like, no, like, this work is going to improve the performance. And if it's not, then it's not working, right? Like, that's always the number one. But if we can do it in a way where you're proud of that work and you want to put that into your portfolio, or we want to submit that for awards, let's do it. You want people to be excited where they work. Yeah. Right? Like, sometimes it's a grind, right? Yeah. Like, and it's easy to stay in that mindset of the grind. But if you create a culture and you create an opportunity where, like, yeah, I can see the next 4 years there, or next 5 years there, like, that's a good thing. And I always say this to people. I go, my number one job is to basically say, let me get you to your next role, right? Like, and I generally feel gratitude when someone actually leaves an organization and they're like, hey, I just got like a creative director role. And like, awesome. Like, I wasn't going to be able to get you here. Like, I got you to get to an associate creative director, but like, I can't have like 12 creative directors. So like, I love the fact that you did great work here that you're proud of, that added value to our team. And then you went out and someone grabbed you, or you had an opportunity, and now you're advancing. Like, I generally be like, that's kind of the only reason why I'm in my roles when I go out and, later on in life, I look back, like, I want people to be pumped that they got a chance to like have an opportunity to work together, and like, can I get them to the next thing? Sedgwick was great for that. Like, they're a growth company. It's good people. Like, that's another part that's really helpful, is like, for lack of a better word, like, no asshole culture, right? Like, which should be obvious. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're allowed to swear. I just bleep later. It's my thing.
Okay.
I completely miss obscuring the swear.
No, it's totally fine.
You're allowed to swear as much as
I
you
like
want.
it. And if we can add in like some little like subtitle or a box over my head, maybe that's where we'll use the sedgehog. It's just like over my mouth with the block, right? So, but I do believe that. Like, I think that's part of why I joined, was like, people are like, hey, let's do this. And it's because the DNA of the company. I'm like, all right, well, if the DNA of the company is about helping other people, all right, I'm down with that. So I think if you have environments where there is a leader who's like, I'm going to make an investment in this, right? I'm going to make an investment in this agency to see if we can do this, and I'm going to see how they can do it maybe differently or add value to us. That's where you get really strong agencies. And that's why I saw it, Intel, and then I saw it at Clorox, and then I saw it at a bunch of other places where you've now seen so many different in-house agencies rise.
I'm glad you brought up leadership, because at the end of the day, the success of the team comes back to that. And I mean, you see situations like what happened with Liquid Sunshine earlier this year. Yeah. It's a leadership mindset. Either leadership appreciates and loves and gives and creates the space, like it seems like you have at Sedgwick, where there's this longer term vision about what you're doing, and it's not just a dollars and cents. It's a philosophy, it's a brand ecosystem, it's whatever it is. It can't just be marketing, and marketing needs that key seat at the table. When it doesn't happen, you have a situation like what happened with Liquid Sunshine. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so I've known a few folks that were there that were impacted by that change. The reality is there is also a business side of things, right? And I think there's a part of it, which is you take an agency that was Agency of the Year by IHAF in 2024, 2023, 2024, and then they're liquidated, no pun intended.
But they've been doing incredible work
Great
for
work.
Keurig, Dr. Pepper. I mean, just
And all the
great
different brands
stuff.
underneath, they figured it out. Like, they've got a good engine, a good content model. They're cranking it out.
And then they're gone the next day.
And so I get it. Like, a lot of leaders will come in and say, look, I want to figure out and put my either stamp of approval on this, or I don't see the value in this. So there's some disconnect, right? There's either communication disconnect, a difference of a point of view, or a culture that was not open to saying, like, what's your real value, Liquid Sunshine? Like, give me what your 3-year model is. Give me your true cost of what you're doing as a business. And if that was asked and that wasn't there, then okay, that leader should have the right to say, I don't believe in that. I'm going to pull in my external agencies because I believe in a new way of working. I don't know if that happened, but like, those would be the questions I probably would have asked. A lot of times, big CMOs and big leadership teams come in and just make their change because that's their playbook, right? Like we talked about, like, I couldn't bring the same playbook from Copper Giants to Sedgwick. One, it's B2C, and the other one's B2B, and then the other side is just 2 different places of where they are. Are there learnings I could take there and pull them in and say, can I treat my team differently, or treat my team well and like do that? Yeah, of course. But the 3-year roadmap is different, and the way we'll go do that is different. So I think the question at that point of Liquid Sunshine was like, hey, like, what was the unique value that was missed by that leadership team to say, hey, we're not going to do this anymore? And that's why it's super important for in-house teams to have clear, what is your value?
Right.
How are you adding it to the marketing department? What's the long-term vision? Where are you going? Repeating that regularly, and then working through the challenges year over year, month by month, and not trying to just focus on an end goal, but live in that journey, which sounds cheesy to say out loud, but like, that's something I like, maybe I'm hitting in my 40s where I'm like, actually, yeah, slow down and actually appreciate the journey you're on, like. So.
100%.
Yeah.
Another thing we wanted to talk about is humor.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of B2C. And in B2B, in some cases, it's a no-fly zone.
Yeah. What's
your perspective on how you bring humor in without losing authority? And I know that's something that you're dealing with at Sedgwick right now.
It's a really good question. I think luckily the creative agency experience, if you have a chance to work within a creative agency, I hope you do, like, gets a chance to have humor, right? Like, even you and me today, like, having agency-based backgrounds. I think in the categories that we work in, especially depending upon the brands you work on, it needs to be part of that brand, right? Like, if humor is part of it. So, or is that the angle or point of entry? So if you look at insurance, there's a reason why the insurance category for a B2C side is funny. Like, insurance is not in general, and it's a must-have, not a I desire my insurance.
Right.
It's regulated. It's a mandate. It's lawfully, like, you have to in the United States. Not in every country, but there is a side of that insurance side where it's like, okay, how do I stand out in a crowd? And that's why the category is so funny, right? Like, that's why you've got the spokes creatures, as they're saying. They're not even saying spokes characters anymore because they're spokes creatures because they're creating things left and right and across it. And so I think that overall is a way that you can infuse it. Now at Sedgwick, my vibe is, how do we create the fun environment for our team, right? Like, where can we laugh and show up and put that energy into it? And then there's moments where I think we can be funny or fun, if you will. A lot of times it's usually more on the internal communication side of where we are in our maturity model. Everything from, in my bag, I've got a little sedge hog that's like this little character, and I'm like, actually, I'll bring it
get him
Let's
out.
do it up. So this thing I didn't strategically agree with, right? You got that on the camera right there? I didn't agree with this because I'm like, this is off strategy. Because our brand attributes are bold, dynamic, warm, fresh, and engaging. And I was like, all right, like, maybe a little warm.
And, no soft and squishy.
No soft and squishy in there. But, and I resist this. It was the running joke that I had with my creative director, and she'll love this when I tell her later that I actually broke this thing out, which is like, I said, look, I don't mind the sedge hog. Like, I just don't think it's on strategy. And she was like, but everyone loves it, Cliff. And I was like,
Everyone loves it.
I was like, but no, this is the thing. We're building this agency. We got to be so strategically sound. And then I was like, you know what?
You got to give the people what they want.
Yeah. And then I was like, you know what? Like, embrace this, dude. Like, let it go. And so for the fun, we're like sending that out to a bunch of our brand ambassadors. We're like, travel around the world, bring that sedge hog with you, take a picture, snap it. I put it into our Thanksgiving dishes set up at home, and I'd send a picture to my team like, sedge hogs at home. And so, like, I think part of that is, one, that's how you can have some fun, right? Like, I think that's where you can have some fun with your brands. I think that's where not everything has to be an aggressive moment of is this on strategy or not. That's also always a learning moment for me of like, where's the ability to flex? I think if we get like silly and like something that doesn't have that moment, maybe that takes it too far. So I think there is the humor side for us is on our team engagements, right? Like, I think if you can try and find moments to laugh every single day in your day-to-day, especially if you're in marketing and advertising and doing it, then that's where it can come through. We'll see if we come out with funny spots or funny digital, content, or if it's going to move beyond the sedge hog, right? But I think in the rest of the categories, it has a value of entertainment and engagement that will be something I think people need, want, and desire, right? When you don't have those products that you necessarily want or desire.
The brand's like an oil tanker. You can't just turn the thing on a dime. You can't just suddenly be funny.
Yeah.
A week ago, you were B2B, buttoned up, top button all the way to the top, and now all of a sudden we're like letting it loose. It takes time, and it has to be authentic. If it switches overnight, voice, tone, etc., there's no continuity. So, I mean, that makes sense. And, a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, that might change. It might slowly evolve, and it becomes more who you are and what you're known for in the space. Let's talk about Tova. Let's talk about what's next in marketing. You're launching in-house agents for tone and guidelines. I mean, that's huge. And you're trying to figure out, again, it's all creative operations and thinking about how to do more in a more strategic and useful way.
It's cool. AI is the topic for everybody, right? And so one of the things we did this summer was what was nice is the organization's going through a pretty massive AI transformation like many brands are, and super strategic, super smart about it. How do we do this? And I can't remember if I mentioned at the top, like we're the largest claims management partner in the world, basically is the easiest way to describe us. And so we manage a ton of data, processing, claims, people, situations, complexity of risk. And so as a company going through all of that, that's a lot to take in. And so I love it when marketing is always like a little bit of a guinea pig, because it's like, all right, how do we do it? So I'm leading our AI transformational change within marketing. And one of the things when we established the strategy this summer was like, look, we need to really educate where we are right now. We need to inspire and equip our people so they can go do their jobs the right way. And by the way, that I will also give credit and transparency. That strategy framework of educate, equip, and inspire is not mine. It's from my lead PM producer, Topher Dubé, who said it some more. I'm like, yeah, we're going to use that. That makes sense. That's clean and easy. But the reality is we did a lot of training this summer. We used an outside consulting company called Superside. They came in and did 7 sessions with us, and Microsoft did 3 sessions with us. Everything from the landscape of AI and like how to prompt 101 specifically down into here is the tools you can use to create video content. So how are you dissecting Sora versus Gemini versus Synthesius for avatars versus HeyGen? It's like, where do you start? Because it's like the new MarTech of MarTech, right?
Yeah.
And so Superside was awesome, trained our teams, and they actually said, okay, one of our first use cases was let's build an agent to help speed up the generation of content. Anything from social content, blog copy, white paper-based content, the stuff that usually takes multiple weeks to write, to interview, to do these things. How can we change that? And so our writing team, led by our creative director, got together with Superside and built that first agent. And at the same time, our leadership team across marketing said, okay, let's identify the capabilities and gaps that we want to enhance across our teammates. And as part of that strategy, I said, look, let's also be reasonable about what people can also take in as they're doing their day-to-day work, as this starts to shift into being, really part of their workflow. Because when you learn how to use a new agent or you're learning a new way of doing it, you can't just give people like 25 agents and say, go, right? Like you got to be like, all right, here's this first one. Let's train, let's iterate, let's get better, like a little more agile on that side. So we said, look, by the end of 2026, everyone in marketing should have 2 or 3 agents at their fingertips that are enhancing their capabilities or their overall skill sets. So that could be efficiency, that could be creativity, that could be automation. So we identified about 8 to 9 different agents in that moment. And so we're going to start to build those with our AI innovation team on the company side. And then we're going to pull those into marketing to share those out. And, monthly or quarterly, we'll start to say, hey, here's our brief agent. Here's our image and graphics agent. Here's Tova, our tone and voice agent. Here's our synthetic focus group agent or our competitive intelligence agent. So like all these like great ways for us to start to enhance our value back to the organization and test and learn into it to see if it's working. And a lot of things I think we're realizing along the way is some of the stuff feels easy. Like everyone's like, oh, make an agent. I can do that tomorrow because everyone can use ChatGPT. And you're like, wow.
Anyone can write an email in marketing. Anyone can do anything in marketing.
Everyone wants to play creative. And you're like, well, yeah. And yes, anyone can write. They should be able to at this day and age, like at least in marketing. But can it be good?
Right.
And can it be better? And so this writer, this lead copywriter that we were talking about before, she really helped to be spearheading the build of Tova, this agent. And she showed us a demonstration of like taking a transcript from a call with another leader and said, write me a 900-page blog, boom, 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 and all these questions. And she showed us the data sources she used to plug into it, and it generated awesome content. And she could angle the tone, she could angle was it a thought leader or more data specific, and yes, can you use enterprise ChatGPT for that? Absolutely. But us having this that's really based on our brand, especially as we've just gone through a year of building this, new brand positioning, new visual identity, new tone and voice, having that be more ownable for us was awesome. And also just the dynamics of like arguing with it when it doesn't work, or like, no, Tova, sorry, that's not what I asked you for. Like, those are just great moments in your day. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I think also having that strategy and structure to our AI approach helps us not do what so many companies are doing, which is, let me go try and build that thing in AI, or let me go try this out. And I also did that to my team last year too. Like, we had this big event for what's called RIMS, which is kind of like the CES for insurance, and it rotates around the country every year. But we do 175 deliverables for this event. So everything from our meeting, like living space where we hold meetings, to our actual booth, to the end of party event, to a VIP dinner, to like everything in between. And so we had to do this video for the end of the event, which was like kind of like behind a music backdrop of a band. And I was like, everyone just built in an AI. And my creative director was like, all right, like we'll give this a shot. And like the reality is like I gave them one source, like runway. I gave them like maybe 100 credits each. Like I had no idea. Like I was like so naive. And they're like, we like our own treatments. We don't know how we're going to use this thing. It's not producing. I'm like, all right. But that was such a great aha moment. For the fail fast moment for me was say, okay, we got to get training. Like, let's go get other people who know how to do this, and then we'll build it in, and it builds our confidence and builds all these things. So that's why we built that strategy for the AI side. And I'm excited about where we're going to go. I think we'll probably have, 6 or 7 agents by mid-year that everyone in marketing should have access to. We'll keep building and iterating on it. We'll learn a lot about like what access points you have, because when you're building agents, a lot of it's based on the data sources and where those are. And a lot of companies are, some are comfortable giving you carte blanche to the internet, and some are like, no, I don't know if we're going to give you access to all those different things as their data source, even though that might
what
be
could go wrong?
Yeah, and especially with a company that manages a lot of claims, like we don't need to like open up ours to be approached on that. So I love how our AI innovation team is really like partnering with us to show us like, hey, here's the sandbox, here's what we can do, cool, this is what we can't do, this is what we can do. And so that's how we're going to work, and it builds our relationship with IT. You actually mentioned something earlier about a workflow that you were working on right now, which I had to like learn the acronym or learn the name. Do you want to talk about it?
Sure.
Just for context, because we're sharing a little bit of like what we're doing on AI.
100%. I mean, I think a lot of organizations are stuck with different teams in silos. Yep. They're utilizing AI. You talked about like creating the partnership with IT and bringing IT into the fold, and you see success there, and that's important. When the average team moves away from maybe using AI like a Google search or having their ChatGPT friend over here that they have conversations with, and you start wanting to actually apply it to teams, that's where that workflow optimization really works. And your team's doing that right now in a Microsoft environment, right, within their Power Platform. N8N was the tool I was talking to you about earlier. That's really just a great product and tool to connect a variety of different pieces together. So yes, you can do a workflow like you talked about. Take this transcript, convert it, and then maybe actually go in and create and drop an Office 365 doc or a Google Doc and actually have it integrate, or maybe even publish and broadcast. So it actually is doing some of the work. Human in the middle, human at the beginning, human at the end, but where it actually is making something that's happening. And when you unlock workflows like that, then you can actually connect different departments together. together, and they're actually using an agent. So you talk about a 2 to 3 agent or a 6 to 8 agent future.
Yeah.
Some of those agents are going to be just creative siloed. Some of them may be outside of that. Some of them might be organization wide. That's, I think, where people are trying to get to. And I feel like there's so much opportunity in that landscape.
Yeah.
A question I wanted to talk to you about, like, where do you feel like B2B marketing's headed now? Like, what do you think's just around the horizon outside of AI and some of the other buzzwords we've talked about? What other things do you think are coming to fruition now?
I think it's a combination of where people are at, kind of at a macro level of engagement and experience, and like where they spend time. I think B2B is going to get to a point where you're going to get content that feels much more, yes, personalized is the buzzword, but much more like engaged in a way where like, oh, got it, I see what you're really doing there, rather than delivering me a message.
Yes.
Right? And I know that sounds really basic, but a lot of B2B messaging delivers you a message. Here's the top 5 things. Here's what's great to know, yada, 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 as opposed to like, let me build that storyline into an environment that becomes more emotive, more feeling based, more like engagement, so that it becomes part of a little more of like your own DNA in a way that you might not. And I think that feels probably a little B2C, like, oh, they created an emotive quality out of that message. And I might not have bought that product on the B2C side, but like the same thing on the B2B side is going to happen. And I think that's why you're starting to see things like Salesforce, like have big ads with Matthew McConaughey, like talking about data, like, are they going to sell their data cloud? Maybe. Or are they just going to be a thought leader about data in there? So you go there and like, all right, well, most of our stuff's in Salesforce. Should we flip over all of our stuff to their data cloud, right? Like, do we think that way? And you're entertained by that, right? It's like, so I'm not saying that the world of B2B is going to go to all celebrities, but I do think you're going to see other experiences happen. We saw this even on the cyber side, which was a lot of the events are huge, obviously, in the B2B space. Like you go to these either in person, you go to virtual, webinars, blank, but a lot of the in-person events for the cyber world, both RSA and then Black Hat, which are the 2 big ones in that category, the physical booth structures started to change to much more experiential, much more engaging, less like list of bullets of all the product proof points to it's like some of them were like hacking the events and setting up like booths outside like Vegas, or like doing something differently, or like these big aliens that would just be standing there. We're like, that must have cost like $3,000, $4,000 or $5,000, $10,000 just to make that massive, like the skeletons you see at Halloween.
Oh yeah.
Like it was kind of like a version of that, like there to say, oh, this is like what's hacking your system. Like that's really intense for someone to think like, let's go put that at our booth and be there. But it felt more like maybe like a wax museum style, but like there's just more of those things. I'm like, all right, that's a shift. Whereas opposed to like, let me set up the tablecloth, let me do the backdrop.
These are our capabilities. Here's a one sheet that we have that we prepared for you to take home.
Sedgwick, right? Like, so, and your giveaway. And I think we'll morph into engagement and like really deconstructing that and like what's going to get someone to be brought in and be part of it, or are you meeting them at a place where they want to be? So.
Personalization, I think, is something that, if done right, doesn't even have to feel like personalization. Mm-hmm. It just feels like not right time, right message, but your message, something that's applicable to you in that one moment. Yeah. What's a legacy you want to leave as a creative leader?
It's a good question. I think it was a little bit back to like why I'm building teams in different ways. So my team knows this. They're like, how do you show up outside of work? And it's like, I'm Coach Cliff. Like, and I say that smiling because I think everyone in my town, if they ever saw any of this, would be like, oh my God, you're so loud. And I am. And even yesterday I was at my son's travel basketball league team, and I'm not a coach, and I normally coach, but like they've got good coaches. Yeah. And my daughter's like, Daddy, shh. And like even the woman who is a friend of ours, she's like, oh, it's like 2 coaches, like one in the stands and like one on the other side. Just can't help myself, right? So, but I do that with like, I want people who I have the chance to work with to have a good story. Like I want people to have a good memory. Like I want someone to say, hey, Cliff helped me, right? Like Cliff helped me get to that next role, or helped me network in this thing, or like, even if it's a junior person, I do this all the time with the young folks now. Like I help them network, and I'll take any of those calls. Or if there's a senior leader who's like, hey, can you talk to my niece? I'm like, yeah, of course. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm never like complaining about that, because going back to value exchanges, I believe that I'm probably learning something from those folks in those moments. And if they can take away and be like, hey, that was helpful, I think that's kind of like my purpose, like is can I bring a community together? Can I help do it differently? And I find happiness in that because I can see the benefit in someone else.
I mean, I think getting to know you care a lot about your team, and it's all about how you can bring them up. I think that's a big part of your leadership, and I think a big part of your legacy. All right, well, bringing us home, favorite après work reset. How do you like to unwind? What's your go-to?
Golf for me is the absolute way to reset. I'd say I really do and this sounds like not a reset, but I like coaching. I'm in a moment. The reason why I also took this role right now at Sedgwick was really good work-life balance. And that work-life balance is not to say I will do the classic thing in the back of people's minds of ooh, I will not work. I will actually, I'll lean into that really hard. And then I also lean into the ability that I can go coach my kids. I can run a flag football program in Littleton, Mass with a bunch of other great people and get that scaled up from 125 kids to 205 kids because they're all excited to play flag in the fall. Or I'm coaching basketball right now with my son and doing just as regularly. I'm just an assistant coach, which is good for everybody. Right? And then I'll coach baseball in the spring for my son, and my daughter's in these activities and singing. And so I think for me, that moment to be present resets me. And that's also hard in our creative and marketing spaces to always be present. We're on these things constantly. There's two of them in front of me right now, right? Two phones going. And so I think for others who are trying to figure out how do you reset, it's if you can just figure out ways to be present in the moment of that, that's great. And I love Sedgwick has a really good focus in on people, which is why I'm there. And so that reset is, being with the fam right now. They're 11 and 9 at those fun ages. Ooh. My son is a little beast. My daughter can sing her heart out. And so just seeing those moments and not missing any of those is really critical. If I advance in my career in the next few years, that might need to adjust a little bit, and but they'll be older and they may not like me at that point. We'll see, But
you'll just be Zoom screening.
They'll be they'll be like, Daddy, whatever. You're not funny anymore. I'm like, oh. But I think that's my reset.
I love it. Well, Cliff, great conversation. Thanks so much for coming out on the show. I'm just gonna be really excited to see in the cheap seats what you're up to next. Thanks for being on.
Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate it. This was great.
That's it for Happy Hour. Cheers to more branding and less boring.